7 minutes past 7, Wednesday the 13th of, please poll attendance, please.
Chairman John Esposito.
Present.
Brian Capola.
Present.
Tom DeRamo.
Yeah.
Robert DeLuca. Present. Paul Amatshore is excused. And Manny Linares. Here. David Taylor, present.
All right. Now, what can we do? Can I have a motion to accept the attendance?
I make a motion, we accept.
Second?
Second.
Motion passed. I need that paper. Always disorganized. Minutes of the last meeting.
Mr.
And
Chairman.
we read the minutes of the last meeting. Has everyone read the minutes of the last meeting?
Yes.
There were some items tabled, we all understand them?
Yes, sir.
Any question? Chair will entertain a vote
Motion.
or motion
Make a motion.
to accept those minutes.
Indeed.
Motion?
Make a motion, we accept the minutes from the May 9th, 2018 meeting as written.
Second.
Motion is second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passed. Okay. Correspondence, what are we gonna do about,
We're gonna make a motion to accept the decision.
the decision on
Yes.
St. Croix?
Yeah.
Okay, in the meeting previous to the last meeting, a motion was made and a decision was reached by the zoning board to deny the application for a special use permit on Mount Hygeia Road. And at the time, the motion was defeated, 3-2, and we'll have to have a motion to accept.
Yes, just a motion
Accept
to
that
approve the
position.
written decision.
Okay. Chair will entertain a motion to approve the written decision.
I make a motion that we approve the written decision on St. 23 LLC.
Thank
I
you.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed.
Yes, we have some correspondence?
We do.
Yes, okay.
Mr. Chairman, we have these to submit.
Yeah, we can submit that, you care to read it? You want to read it? Yeah.
Are they relevant to the special use permit or separate and apart?
It is relevant in the fact that they want us to consider their opinion on the impact.
All right, so we can do that with the permit.
Okay, so you have to read this out, this is the procedure that we're going to follow, right?
Yep.
Okay. We have an application submitted by Quahog, get the name right, Quahog Solar. And has the paperwork been submitted?
Yes,
Is the paperwork in order?
yes,
Have abutting people been notified?
yes,
And it has been duly advertised?
yes.
Okay, is the applicant here?
Yes,
Sir, come forward, please.
my name is Sanford Resident. I am the attorney for the applicant.
Okay, as the attorney for the applicant, you can speak in his favor, obviously.
And my client is here.
Do we want to read the,
All right, I'll read the, how we're gonna do this.
yep,
That's, All right, this is how we'll conduct the meeting for the whole thing. Any person who wishes to speak will give his or her name and address and be placed under oath. All questions and statements must be addressed to the board. There will be no crosstalk in the audience. Once the application is read, the chair will hear from the applicant first. It is the applicant's burden to present evidence supporting his or her request. The presentation must be clear to the point. After the application has completed his or her presentation, any abutter in favor of the application will have a reasonable time to speak. After all abutters in favor of the application have spoken, any abutters opposed to the application will have a reasonable time to speak. After all the abutters have spoken, any other interested members of the audience may, at the discretion of the chair, speak for no more than 5 minutes. No person shall speak twice until all interested parties have spoken. Once all testimony is heard, the board will recess in place for discussion. No further testimony will be taken from the floor once the board is in recess. The board will then come out of recess. The chair will accept any motion, and it is the board's procedure that each motion must be in the affirmative, which does not apply acceptance of the application. That's just legalese that has to be expressed in the affirmative. A vote of 4 to 1 is necessary to carry any motion except an appeal. An appeal requires a vote of 3 to 2. If your application is approved, the decision will be finalized at the next monthly zoning board meeting. No building permit can be issued before the decision is finalized. If your hearing is denied, you have the right to appeal to Superior Court within 20 days after such decision is recorded. The board reserves the right to postpone a decision until the next scheduled regular meeting on any hearing. That's the procedure we'll follow. What's that, please?
Are you gonna read the
This one. Oh, that's what you got.
I'm just going to read the planning department outline of the applicant's submittal to the zoning board of review. The applicant is Coburg Solar LLC for property located on Hartford Pike between poles 3 and 12, being plat 18, lot 30, in an agricultural residential AR district on 45.3 acres. A special use permit is sought from the town of Forster zoning ordinance, Article 4, zone regulations, description of uses, section 10, service industries, subsection 6, major solar installation. The permit is needed to construct a 6.02 megawatt DC, 4.68 megawatt AC, ground-mounted solar installation encompassing approximately 20.5 acres with related gravel access drive, a 9-foot high security fence, and storm water drainage best management practices.
Okay, that's the application.
Yes, sir.
You don't want to accept that? Okay, now, sir.
Thank you. For the record, my name is Samson J. Resnick. I am attorney for Quahog Solar LLC. We're here, as just stated, for a special use permit. As a little background, we've had, I believe, 5 site visits on this property. We have a master plan approval. We've had a community meeting, and through this process, we've made modifications to our plan, starting with the planner, who had some questions and comments, to listening to the neighbors, to listening to the board, listening to people on the sidewalk, which got us here today with this presentation. There's a couple of comments I'd like to make. I'm not really sure they're modifications, but I do want to make these statements out front, so there's no misunderstanding, because there were questions raised as to these 2 points at the time of the master plan. And that is, there is no blasting on the spot. We do not intend to blast. We will agree to a stipulation there'll be no blasting. We also are not making an application for rock crushing, which I understand in the town of Forster, rock crushing itself is a special use permit. So we will not be requesting rock pushing of the property. What I'd like to do is, this evening, is start with a presentation by Joe Casale, and qualify Joe, who's a professional engineer, has his master's in business administration. Joe has spoken as an expert, professional engineer in many of the cities and towns in Rhode Island, in alphabetical order from Burrillville through Woonsocket. He's testified as an expert at the Rhode Island Superior Court. I have a resume. You can see from the resume, if I could just introduce this, that he's a member of many engineering societies, very highly respected in the state of Rhode Island, and I would move that he be recognized as an expert.
You all set with that? Is he coming up?
Yes, he will.
Okay.
So,
All right.
we'll entertain a motion.
Yeah, I think we're assuming that.
I make a motion, I'm sorry.
You are?
Excuse me, so just for the record, my name is Joe Casale, I'm a registered professional engineer with offices at 300 Post Road in Warren.
All right, before me, I have a list of his engineering expertise, and we'll entertain a motion to accept him as an expert witness.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we accept Mr. Casale's resume as evidence of his expert testimony for this applicant.
Okay. Second? Second.
I'm
All in
sorry, Joe.
favor? I'm sorry?
Second.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Discussion? All right, you are accepted, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, good evening. So again, just for the record, my name is Joe Casale, I'm a registered professional engineer, offices at 300 Post Road in Warren. If I may, Mr. Chairman, just quickly walk the board through a PowerPoint presentation. Mr. Davari, the applicant, and I will be able to do this together. So in terms of where we are, you can see the town line, the easternmost town line where the Forest River abuts Situate, and known locally, Route 101, known locally as Hartford Pike. Tucker Hollow Road is across the street, and then that is the subject parcel, specifically, Mr. Chairman, Assessors Plat 18, Lot 30. It's about 45 acres, entirely zoned in the AR agricultural residential zone.
Mr. Casale, just, you were not sworn in.
I was
So,
not.
I just, before you keep going. You solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do. So, looking at what just came up, that orange line represents that interior building envelope. And the blue blotches is what we have for freshwater wetlands. And these were field delineated by a Rhode Island registered wetlands biologist. Larger complex here is a forested wetlands and a couple of swamps. All of these carry with it a 50-foot perimeter wetland, an additional jurisdictional buffer imposed by DEM on larger complexes over 3 acres. And that, Mr. Chairman, is our proposal in terms of the solar array. It's approximately 2,250 panels, and you can see that it will be split by a gravel access road. And if you remember on the site walk, we had had staked out that gravel access road. That's about 1,110 linear feet. And what you have around it, in accordance with your code, is a 9-foot-high security fence, which encompasses about 20.5 acres. So of the 45 acres of the parcel, 20.5 of them will be encompassed by the solar array.
Mr. Casale, can I stop you for a second?
Sure.
Is this the proposal you showed to the planning board in its entirety?
This is the proposal in its entirety that we showed to the planning board.
Have there been any changes between now and then?
There hasn't, but there are 2 changes that I want to bring to your attention from your zoning packet to what you're going to see tonight.
I'm just concerned, I just want to make sure that I'm looking at what they looked at.
Yes, absolutely. We, as you know, we've been before the planning board multiple times. initially for concept, and twice for master plan and a couple of field walks. Incorporate the neighborhood meeting, we have adjusted the program, and we hope we've done it positively as a direct response.
Thank you.
But thank you, it's a great segue, because there are two changes to what we filed with the zoning board, which I believe was 5 or 6 weeks ago, and what transpired. Though they may be minor, we hope to the abutters that they're a major change. The first one is the proximity of the drainage appurtenances to our closest neighbor. So as you can see with the 3 wetland complex, stormwater flows as if this was a crown site and into both 3 wetland complexes, which is why the stormwater management areas are here. Assessors Plat 18, Lot 29 is our closest abutter. And what the plans reflect is we were about 122 feet away from her closest property line. And while we know from the topography that all of this water really flows westerly, it was a fair concern not to want to stare into a detention basin thinking we were going to point discharge wetlands onto her property. So the first change we made was we modified this program and adjusted that basin so that the fence is no closer than 200 feet to her property line. And it doesn't change the basis of design in terms of the water is still going to flow westerly, be captured into the basin, and then make its way around her house into the swamp. And then ultimately, we've chased the stormwater leaving the site where it flows from its western point, from its eastern point, and even where that wetland complex dumps out to some culverts under 101.
I'm assuming that design change had to be approved by DEM as well?
We haven't filed with DEM. We've had a preliminary meeting with DEM to understand that what we're proposing conceptually will be received ultimately by them, but not until we get permission, at least, we have master plan, at least a special use permit. We would then take the next step through the state agencies, DEM and DOT. You're welcome. So, other site amenities, including the transformer pad and its location, all utility electric will be underground. That's in accordance with your code and as we've always stated, and then ultimately to our metering pole. This is the second change that planning saw and approved that you don't have in your packet, which we understand how important it was in terms of landscaping on past projects in this town. And so while we were only at the master plan stage, we've engaged a Rhode Island registered landscape architect to draw us a landscape plan in accordance with your code. We've also, Diane Soul is a local landscape architect out of Smithfield. I've used her for 20 plus years. And I can assure you, Mr. Chairman, that there will be no ask from us in terms of waivers or variance from landscaping. What the code requires is what is there. We've also asked her to give us an estimate of probable construction costs, which is about $80,000. And part of what we will agree to, what is written into our master plan decision, was the stipulation of up to $100,000 in terms of a performance bond should we not self-perform this landscaping, which, while we attest to, if we don't, the town has some vehicle, some mechanism in terms of a performance bond to self-construct this. So we've also hired Diane, because I wanted her to do renderings for our 2 closest residential neighbors. So if you can picture this as a camera, and those lines are like shutters, what you would see if you were holding that camera, that's a rendering of what that neighbor can expect to see. And you can see that there is, in portions of the year, there's going to be understory exposed. And so then I asked her to render what it's going to look like when her landscaping is in, and I believe she captured the intent of what we wanted, which, and I say this respectfully, we don't want to see the residential neighbors as much as they don't want to see our operations. We did this again from that easternmost corner of the butter. Again, what one would expect to see, and in the background you can see a portion of the solar array, and after the underlying story is in, one cannot expect to see anything. Planning was very specific with us about deer-resistant landscaping, and I believe she's captured that. That was part of her charge in terms of her basis of design. And so with that, Mr. Chairman, temporarily, I'm going to hand over this presentation to Mr. Navari, because I would ask John if he would go through not only who they are, but some important things such as our maintenance plan and decommissioning plan and so forth and so on.
So, my name is John DeBerry. I am the owner of NextPath Finance and two partners in Quogue Solar.
I think you need to swing
Swear.
Do solemnly swear the testimony about to give should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do. So, there are a lot of names in your packet, so I just want to make sure everybody understands who's who. So, I am NextPath. I'm the sole owner. Quogue Solar is 50-50 between me and a company called Sunlight General Capital out of New York that has partnered with me on this project. So at the end of the day, we are going to own the land. We are going to own the panels for the foreseeable future. Expect it to be something along the lines of 35 to 40 years. Let's see if I can make that go or not. Maybe not. Oh, there we go. So part of what we've done in this package and what you guys see here are try to answer some of the questions that have come up, not necessarily here, but at other projects that we've done. There's some of the concerns that people tend to have in regards to solar. One of them is glare. Are these going to have some negative impact on the area around them because of the amount of glare? The glare study, which is virtually impossible to read actually on the sign, which should be much more readable in your packet, walks through the fact that there is no material glare off these. The idea of the panel is it's so up. That's the idea.
I'm sorry, the idea of the panel.
I'm sorry, it's not supposed to reflect sunlight, it's supposed to absorb it to create as much energy as possible. So that is minimal, and should not be a real concern. We have an operation and maintenance plan. It's again detailed in your packet. I can walk you through a couple of pieces. There will be some on-site services that do occur to make sure that everything is up and running. There'll be some preventive maintenance that people will come by and do. There'll be reactive visits to the extent that something is broken. Obviously, we'll be out there very quickly to fix it. We monitor this 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's remotely monitored. So we'll see exactly when something goes wrong. Even if it's one panel in one corner, we'll know very, very quickly and can react to it. Severe weather, obviously we all know we have it. We're very ready and prepared to deal with those things as they occur. We also have landscaping. Underneath all these panels is grass. This time of year, grass grows like crazy. I don't know about your yard, mine's going nuts. So we will have someone out here mowing to keep the grass from growing too high underneath the panels. As it comes to later in the year, and there'll be a lot less. And obviously in the winter, no mowing at all. Same as your yard or whatever. I already mentioned this. We have remote services, sort of 4-layer monitoring program, various different tests that are run, some minute to minute, some daily, weekly, monthly, and quarterly, to ensure that the entire system is running as intended for the entire time. And the way solar works, because of the materials that we're using, we're not using, we're using the materials that are very well backed by their manufacturers. So in general, the panels have warranties up to 20 years. The inverters have warranties up to 10 years. So they're designed to work that long. They're pulled out and fixed to the extent that there's a problem by the manufacturer. They're quickly under warranty. And like I said, we have a monitoring and data acquisition system. This is a life cycle analysis. Another question that comes up often is, what's the useful life of these, what's gonna happen when they're gone, that kind of thing. So solar panels of the type that we're putting up here have a useful life of between 25 and 40 years. What ends up happening is they degrade slightly, call it 1% a year, every year. So in 40 years, they are still working, they're just not working all that great. They're just working at 40% less than you wish they were. So they're still functional. But you can read that study, it's fully in the packet. Another question that comes up a lot is noise. Is there gonna be a lot of noise? Do these create noise? Solar in general, the panels themselves don't create any noise. The transformer does create some noise. This is a decibel study that was done at 50 decibels, which is, to give you an idea of what that means, it's roughly the same as listening to a dishwasher that's in the other room. That's how much the noise the transformer makes. So the fact that, as you can see from the map that Joe showed, these are set far back from anything so that you wouldn't be able to get a dishwasher that far. Same thing, you won't be able to hear this in any material distance. Decommissioning plan, obviously a concern, making sure that at the end of the useful life in 35 years or 20, that we have a plan to make this go away, and what are we gonna do? We're still gonna own the land at that point. So in your packet is our full decommissioning plan, what we expect to do, what we're gonna do with all the components. As far as what we're gonna do with the land, that's a question for 25, 35 years from now, and I'll come before the board at that point, we can discuss it. And this is back to Joe.
Yes. So, Mr. Chairman, in conclusion, to wrap up where we are and where we need to go, should we be successful tonight, just by way of history, as we said, we started this back in 17, rightfully so, with a pre-application meeting with the planning board. We've taken a couple of site walks with them in the winter months, being January and February of 18. We did have an abutter meeting right here in Forster in April, and hopefully heard their concerns. And then ultimately in May, we received our master plan approval and a positive recommendation to you, the zoning board. There were stipulations, if I could, like to just go through, because we are in conformance, we believe, with every one of your stipulations. First one, if I can paraphrase, is about, sticking to the plans, as you suggested, Mr. Bailino, that was provided. The purchase agreement, we have not executed it. We do not have a proposal. We do not want to be presumptuous in that anyway. In terms of fencing, landscaping, emergency access, grading, drainage, installation, and all of the 10 standards that I will not go through in detail, we have met in accordance with this design. Of course, this installation will be in compliance with the state building code and state electrical code. We do need to file a preliminary determination with DEM, which will be contingent upon any of our approvals. And also, we need a physical alteration permit from DOT because Route 101 being a state highway. Proof of liability insurance, as well as a surety bond, which we agreed to, and of course, the important performance bond for the landscaping. So lastly, we did take a site walk with this board a couple of times this month, on June 2nd and June 11th, and we're here before you tonight for a special use permit. But that's not the end of the road in terms of us. We have scheduled a meeting with the council on June 28th, I believe that it is. And again, the preliminary determination and the DOT permit. And if successful, back in front of zoning, in front of planning for preliminary and possibly final. I know that was a lot, but I would be happy to answer questions of you or members of the board.
Question for, go ahead, sir.
I have several questions. If you could bring the plat map back up. That. The yellow, obviously the yellow line is the property involved.
Yes,
The next line in, the orange line,
yes.
what is that?
That's the building envelope in the agricultural zone. While the zoning code calls for a 20-foot buffer from any roadway or properties, we want to maintain a 100-foot buffer.
Okay, now the red line is the fence.
The red line is the 9-foot perimeter fence, yes.
What is the distance between the red line and the highway?
On the eastern portion, this is about 200 feet. The closest portion, which is right here, where the transformer will sit, I believe is about 125, maybe 130 feet. And then we're back up to about 175 here.
So the first line of panels, those panels face which direction?
Those panels are gonna face south.
Okay, so they'll be facing the roadway.
Yes.
So the distance between the first line of panels and the roadway is approximately,
It's even greater. You know, in this area, maybe 230 feet because we have our drainage here and we have our fence. In here, while the transformer is closer, this panel location is maybe 160 to 170 and maybe a little bit longer here.
okay. Now you mentioned on the left-hand side, the collection pond, have you?
Yes.
Is that natural or is that gonna be dug?
It's gonna be man-made. That's gonna be dug. So the DEM is gonna want us, and your town code is gonna want us to make sure that there's no increase in runoff and no decrease in runoff to these wetlands, so that we want to mimic existing conditions. So those ponds are going to be sized large enough to hold small storms to large storms and slowly meter out the stormwater. It's also going to improve the quality of the stormwater.
Now, the property in question is domed. Is that gonna be leveled?
It's not. That, you're right, this property is domed, which is why we have the low points to the west, to the east, and to the south. And that's one of the elements that's attractive about solar is the innocuousness of the terrain isn't going to be changed. We're going to fit these panels around our terrain.
And the rock that's on the property, there's a glacial rock up there. What is gonna be done with this?
We've agreed that we're not going to blast, we're not going to crush. We would like to remove as little as possible as to not affect our operations or to be trucking in and out of there. We do not intend to quarry or sell material or do anything in that nature. We will need to move some rock and probably need to truck some rock out of there throughout the process. How much, I don't think we're at that level of design yet, but we will be and we'll be able to present that to the planning.
The stone walls on the property,
There are quite a few stone walls, and we've agreed that those will remain on site. They will be needed to be removed and reset and repurposed. If we can build some type of stone wall in the front or in somehow, but we're certainly, we've agreed that we won't remove them. We've also offered to donate them to the town. I know that they are a valuable commodity. There's actually state laws against stealing them. And if the town has other stone walls that they need repurposed, we would be happy to do that.
A question, what will the material of the fence be?
We've offered anything that the town or the abutters would like. I think we've come to an agreement that this 9-foot high is per code, and that we wanted it to blend. And so I think the best one would be something like a chain link fence that was transparent and not something opaque like a big white PVC fence. And we've also offered to spray or galvanize it for that rubber, that black rubber material on it.
So you'll coat it,
We'll coat it.
and with the intent that it'll blend in with the surrounding.
Right. We don't want to see this big white apex strip around there. With the trees in front of that, we have all our landscaping in front of it. Sure, I think a chain link coated fence, if everyone's in agreement, we are too.
Yeah, we're gonna have to get into that because we've had
we've had a problem with bright shiny fences.
Sure, I understand.
You have, all right, on this one, the path going up to the transformer
Yes,
has a dog leg in it. On the other print, it was straight through.
right.
Now, do you intend to put that dog leg, or we're gonna look down an alley right through the middle of it?
And that's why we want the dog leg, is, we've realized that we don't want, well, we don't ever expect, vehicular traffic here. There will be times, in an event, if a truck needs to get in here, and we're sensitive not to have, someone's lights shining into that residential home. That's why we had dog leg the
So
property.
you are going to dog leg?
We absolutely will.
Yeah, we don't want a tunnel effect.
And, right, and you don't want us to see that as well.
What will the, how will you secure the panels to the ground? You use platforms? You're gonna screw?
We're probably gonna pin them into the rock,
So right now, the intention is to either screw or put the steel in, just lay the steel in that way. Screw, it seems like the most likely, yes, ground screw.
Okay. And of course, there'll be a cement pad under the transformer.
there will.
And the height of the transformer approximately?
I don't know that that's specified, but they're typically no more than 4 or 5 feet.
Now, is that encased in a building?
No, that transformer is open to the weather.
Okay.
Yeah. Based on the loads of the
It'll be a
transformer.
traditional pattern transformer.
It will, it will be nothing out of the ordinary.
Now, the area between the fence line and, I'm sorry, John,
No, what?
between the fence line and the roadway, the foliage there, is that gonna be disturbed at all?
Thank you for bringing that up, because I was remiss in not mentioning that. We have always agreed and continue to agree that we will not touch any of that foliage, that we don't need to. It's counterintuitive to our intent not to see anybody and to plant all of that landscaping there. So as we've shown in those renderings, that foliage is our best asset, and we intend that it would stay.
So the only thing that'll be disturbed will be the entrance road?
Be the
From
entrance
the
road and anything within this 20.5 acres. So this fence line and 20 feet outside of it will be my limit of disturbance that my DEM permit will be predicated upon.
Okay.
Just a quick aside. I believe you said your connection from your transformer, because the poles are on the same side of the street, you can go underground.
We can. Your code requires all underground electric. I believe the only thing that you'll see is possibly one pole on our side of the property, and that may be overhead to the other pole. Am I correct in saying that? Yes.
Because your distance on the property is greater than the span, so you'd have to add a pole approximately, what, 60 or 80 feet? in?
Typically, the utility dictates on their side of things, but on our side of things, do I have to swear in?
You
Yeah,
should be
and say your
sworn in
name,
here.
sorry.
Let's see if we're done with Mr. Solid.
Yeah.
All set?
No, that's fine. It's, yeah.
All right, now we have some electrical questions.
You solemnly swear the testimony you want to give should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help
I do.
you. State.
And you are?
My name is Peter DeBro. I'm a licensed professional engineer in the state of Rhode Island, in the profession of electrical engineering.
Okay.
Counsel, do you want to come by as an expert witness?
I would, but I'll have to ask Peter to give him a little bit of background to your experience, and your education, your experience, where you testified before. In other states also.
Okay, yes, I've graduated from Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute in bachelor's in electrical engineering. I have a master's in energy engineering solar power from the University of Massachusetts in Lowell. And I've been practicing and designing solar arrays for about 14 years now. I have testified in multiple towns in New Jersey primarily, and designed a lot of systems there, as well as some systems in, I'm licensed in New York, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Massachusetts.
Entertain a motion to accept him as an expert witness.
Sir, state your name again, is it Thompson?
It is Peter DeBro.
Peter. Spell your last name.
D-U-B-R-O.
We have a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, we accept Mr. DeBro's qualifications as expert testimony for this applicant.
We second it?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So accepted. Continue.
Okay, so I believe we were, got lost train of thought of the original question.
Above ground service connections.
Okay, so the utility themselves, National Grid in most of Rhode Island determines on the utility side what their requirements are. But in terms of our requirements, we will come up from the underground and all power will be underground on our side of the fence. Any area between the solar panels and the transformers or inverters or anything else will all be underground in protected conduit. That's just what we like to do because it, for a project of this length of longevity, we really like to make sure that it's not only it can last long, but if there is something that goes wrong, that we can easily fix it without bringing out major equipment to do so. So we don't want any storms or anything disrupting any poles. So it is our intention to have everything underground on our side. And we will obviously tell the utility that we would like as much of what they're able to do underground as well. Typically, they require a connection to their point of connection to their poles. And alongside those poles, we can probably have some of their other poles, which is they're going to have a disconnect and they're going to have metering poles to make sure that they have control over turning the system off if they need to for whatever reason on their end.
Any more electrical questions? I have a question, but I don't know who can answer that for you, sir. In the past, we've requested a bond for demolition if, for some reason, the facility has to be dismantled.
Yes.
Has that been addressed?
Yes, that for decommissioning at the end?
Yeah.
Yes, and we've committed to that already
Okay.
as part of our.
All right. Any other questions?
Yes, I do.
No, I'm sorry, I just have another witness when you're ready.
Tom, you have a question?
In the past, we've requested or we required the companies to reach out to our fire departments for training if there's a problem there, what they can and cannot do.
Absolutely, I've done some of those training sessions myself.
Either a training session or at least reach out to the fire departments. They may have already been trained, but it's still, I feel much better if they were contacted and asked if they would like to go through another training.
Sure.
Absolutely, and it should be noted also that there is very little in the way of flammable materials. The solar panels themselves are basically metal and glass, and all the structures are metal as well. And if, we don't want to put any firefighters in danger. If the site is going up, we prefer them to just keep the surrounding area safe. We don't want them, rushing in. If they feel the need to do so, absolutely. But we have insurance for these reasons, and we've never had a major fire on any of our 80 systems that we currently run that has caused the need for that.
On the fence line, would there be any signage on the fence line in reference to warning signs?
Yeah, we are required by code to have warning signs, warning of high voltage.
And is there going to be any permanent lighting on the property?
We don't anticipate any permanent lighting.
What's that, Tom?
Yeah.
I have a question. In regards to the fire department, it's not just so that the panels will catch fire, but if the surrounding area should catch fire and it jumped the fence and coat the grass under the panels, the firemen have to have access to that. And is there a lock system with a master key that would be available to the fire department so that they could access?
Yeah, we work with
Access the
the fire department to meet whatever conditions they have. If they
We're gonna
need to-
cross this
If
before.
they need to cut the lock, which a lot of times, they just tell us, hey, we'll just cut your lock, we don't,
Or we would have a Knox box there, custom, where they would be able to, with their master key, get into.
So you-
whatever they're comfortable with. It's
You'll address those.
not an issue for us.
Any other questions? Last chance.
Mr. Chairman.
Okay, what is?
I have another witness.
Oh, I thought it is.
My next witness is our real estate expert, consultant, real estate broker, appraiser, Tom Sweeney. Tom has testified as an expert, actually testified here in the town of Portsmouth, all through the state of Rhode Island, excuse me. In before the courts, he's an expert in front of the Superior Court on many occasions, and I would ask that Tom be recognized as an expert. I have one person.
A lot of titles here.
It's on my education, Mr. Chairman.
Your inspection, there's a lot on here, so we'll entertain a vote to accept this gentleman as an expert witness. Entertain a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, we accept Mr. Sweeney's resume as expert witness in the matter of this applicant.
Is it second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
You're certified experts.
Thank you.
That's swearing.
We've almost missed that 3 times, actually.
Do you solemnly
It's
swear
getting better.
do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you?
I do.
Mr. Sweeney, you're familiar with the application.
I am.
You're also familiar with the zoning ordinance,
I am.
and specifically the new solar ordinance.
Yes,
And you're familiar with the comprehensive plan.
I am.
And we had a meeting, I know you were at one of them, that there was a concern, the neighbors, in regards to what effect this project would have on their values. And I know that you've done your own independent research. And before we get into other things that I'd like to get in the record, I would like to address the issue in regards to the effect of values, if any.
With Mr. Resnick's request, I inspected the property located along Hartford Pike. In addition to inspecting the area, one of the issues that has come up is that they really, because of the essential newness of solar arrays in these type of areas, especially in Rhode Island, there hasn't been any significant studies done here. What I did do was delve into some research online and came across a study that I'm more than happy, I've got a report for the board, and I've also got a copy of the study that I referenced in the report, in which it was a study on a 53 similarly sized parcel of land in North Carolina, adjacent to both agricultural and residential properties. The study conducted numerous peer sales analysis, which is essentially taking 2 very similar properties, the only difference being one is next to a solar array, one is not, and seeing if there is any difference that could be attributed to the solar array. Based upon this report and the conclusions of it, their conclusion is that there is no negative impact from a solar array being in close proximity to residential and rural and agricultural properties, similar to what we're talking about here. I've testified in front of this board regarding the proposed solar array on Shippey Town Road, Shippey Schoolhouse Road, excuse me, which is smaller, but essentially is along the same lines, not similar to the one that's on, I think Route 6, that's in the commercial zone. Both this one and that one are emphasizing the fact that they don't want to be seen. They have, with the landscaping and buffers and everything else that are proposed here, the fact, once this is built, in my opinion, you won't be able to see it, further supports the fact that this will have no negative impact on the surrounding property values, their use and/or enjoyment. So, specifically to that, Mr. Chairman, I'll be more than happy to give you a copy of my report and the other report, if you would
If
like.
we could introduce that as it exists.
I've got one for the chairman that I can give one to all the members if they so like, or I can just put one in the record.
Move for the plan, please. So
Yep.
put it in the record.
Only has one from the planning board meeting? I've got extra.
Give me an extra.
If I don't have enough, I will make sure I get you.
I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
Are you filming the presentation?
No, we have some more questions. You can ask the question anytime.
You familiar with the term brown site in reference to where solar panels are being built or should be built?
Brownsville. That's an impacted site. Go on Browns.
Brownfield.
Brownfield.
site.
Brownfield.
So, landfill, chemicals in the soil, that kind of thing.
Okay, and does that also refer to the topography, the makeup of the soil, the makeup of the parcel of land?
Not to my knowledge.
No,
So
it's
that would
it's-
not affect this in any
It's
way?
an impacted, a site that's been impacted, environmentally impacted,
Typically, the
hazardous
brownfield.
waste.
There are, an example of it, Mr. Chairman, is if you, and I'm not sure I can say this, but there's a property in Warwick that has some issues with its development. And one of them was a question whether it was environmentally impacted. They have put solar panels on that site because they do not go into the ground. They're attached to the ground. They don't disturb the ground, so they don't go underground. So there is no problem that comes from them. In this case, this is a challenging site where they're gonna put them into the rock and not really disturb. Try to limit the disturbance of the property as much as possible.
The point becomes moot because it doesn't apply.
Correct. This is not a brownfield site.
All right, I'm upset. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. Mrs. Sweeney, you're familiar with the comprehensive plan of the town of Flossmoor, is that correct?
I am.
And you've examined that as it relates to the solar use, is that correct?
I have.
In your opinion, is this use consistent with the comp plan?
In my opinion, it is. Not only is it my opinion, but it's also the opinion of the planning board, who at the last planning board meeting voted, I believe, 4-1, 5-1, 6-1, to recognize that this development is. Just one of the things, it's using the land as a natural part of the foster environment. It's also economic development. So those are two key elements of the comprehensive plan that this plan meets.
In your opinion, will a proposed use be detrimental to any development in the surrounding area?
In my opinion, it would not be. Again, as has been testified to, what they're trying to essentially do is utilize a challenging piece of property to make it economical for the town and the owner. Because the landscaping and the buffers are such that you won't see it once it's constructed. Again, you won't see it and therefore will have no negative impact on the surrounding properties or their development.
And kind of almost the same question, is will proposed use be compatible with the neighboring land uses?
In my opinion, it will be. We're talking about 50% of the entire site, which will be well buffered behind both natural buffering and what is proposed. In my opinion, it will be consistent with the surrounding uses.
And will the proposal alter the general character of the surrounding area or impair the intent of the ordinance or the comprehensive plan?
In my opinion, it will not, again, for the reasons I've testified to.
I have no other questions.
Any other questions? Questions of anybody that's testified?
Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, we'll open the public hearing. Abutters first. Any abutter in favor of this installation? I have to say it 3 times. Any abutter in favor of this installation? Any abutter in favor of this installation? Any abutter not in favor? Opposed? Please come forward. She had her hand up first.
Are we doing it how we signed in, or by just?
No, just come forward. Swear in. No, I already told him. You, sweetie, have you sworn in?
Certainly.
Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Please state
State
your
your
full
name,
name.
please.
I
Amita Rodman, R-O-D-M-A-N.
And can you show us approximately where you are abutting this land on the map? Can you say it for me?
A little bit difficult because I own 65 acres off of Tucker Hollow Road.
Okay. Fair enough.
So there's a piece of it because of the 200-foot, was it 200 feet?
You are within
Requirement. I am a butter,
it? Okay,
and I'm listed on the application.
fine. You were notified, now because you are here, so
In a
please
manner.
proceed.
Okay. As I stated, I and my husband own 62 acres of land, of which 45 acres are in the forestry program, and 3 constitute separate, completely separate home parcels. These holdings begin close to the Hartford Pike area and extend about 3/4 of a mile south on Tucker Hollow Road. I'm not an insignificant abutter. Why we care? Since 1937, my family has been on this road. We think we're thoughtful stewards of the land, and I think we meet many of the descriptors of a Fosterite in terms of the uses of the comprehensive plan. We hold more than the minimum average of this town. We expanded our land ownership because Foster's rural, because Foster is unspoiled, because Foster has water, woodlands, and only one commercial corridor. Here's what we share in common with the owner and the applicant, who are not the same. We abut a critical and at times troublesome waterway called Dolly Cove Brook. 2 of our parcels are residential, as I said, whose property lines include Dolly Cove Brook. We host it, or it hosts us. More than most, we are intimate with its ebbs and its flows, including where it flows from, which is the north side of 101. I have a lot of growth and native forestation on my land, ledge, rocks on my parcels, and the same is true for the applicant. We love solar. I have a full array, 35 panels, and I give back to the grid. So this is not about who loves solar and who doesn't. I hope to persuade you that you should hold over a decision on a special use permit because the information you need, we need, planning needs, to fully evaluate and consider conditions is not before the board, this is not before the planning board, and it certainly is not in front of the abutters. Such a holdover does not pose hardship to the applicant. In fact, it will advance the application because additional and missing information is critical to the process and is required in any event at some point by one agency or another, at the state level or at the town level. And a more effective data set would expedite an appropriate decision by this board. Further, any special use permit for the project of this scope, this impact, really, and the nature of it warrants stipulations. Section 3863 in the powers and duties of our code says that you have the power set forth as follows. Number 2, I don't mean to lecture to you, but since this is on the record, I'm going to state it. In granting a special use permit, the board may impose such additional safeguards and conditions as are deemed necessary in order to conform with these requirements. So the givens. Solar is allowed, if not actually encouraged. The basic preliminaries apparently have been met in the master plan. I must say, I did not consider or did not understand that the master plan was approved. I understood that the master plan was presented and that on the face of it, it meets the basic requirements of the zoning code and therefore could proceed to the next step, which is you. To me, as I misunderstood, there was no implicit approval of the details of that master plan. And if that were so, then I think the abutters have a lot to say still. A utility, quasi-commercial that it is, we can argue that point, but from our point of view as abutters, that's what it is, can be placed in AGO. We acknowledge that. However, we have to acknowledge that this would be a first for the town of Foster to place an installation of this magnitude within a long-established residential zone. Being first is an important given and calls for a well-thought-through decision. The legal applicant is, and this is not made in offense, is an investor developer. I'm told that Casale Engineering has a very good reputation. That's wonderful. But we know little about you as a principal, and even though on paper, but likely not reality, we are entering into a 20-year situation together. We're going into a partnership. The drivers of Quahog are very different than those of the abutters, and in several ways that can be cited from the comprehensive plan, quite different from what our stated plan says, but for the town of Foster. It is also a given that their drivers can lead to a project that conflicts with the City of Providence in the form of the Providence Water Supply Board and the State of Rhode Island with respect to its commitment to our wetlands.
Excuse me, please.
Yes?
You're kind of going over. Can you wrap it?
No?
You got 1 minute.
Why is that?
I stated in the beginning that we had 5 minutes. We'll be,
I thought it was, I read the code, I thought it was reasonable. I'm in a butter, I'm
Absolutely.
allowed reasonable time to present. Is that correct?
yes,
All right. I don't mean to be argumentative.
just a minute.
You didn't give them more than 5 minutes.
Continue.
Thank you. So from the top down, wanting solar energy and implementing it are not the same. The wetland rules are currently in rewrite. I don't predict they're going to be less stringent. I'm sure the Casale firm knows more about it than I do, but it's too soon to project how this project will be impacted by the new rules. In the town of Foster, our code is up to date to allow this, but nothing else has kept apace, not the least of which is the comprehensive plan. Route 6 is our commercial corridor, and the one experience there, as we all know, is less than stellar. Okay, this has moved forward from the community's point of view at a breathtaking pace. April 12th to June 13th is not a long enough amount of time to gather the facts. One abutter is the Providence Water Supply Board. Even in the application, the address is wrong. Maybe they got it, maybe they didn't. The plan cites 48 acres, elsewhere it cites 45. There are lots of little details, the technical parts don't matter. But in section 38292, solar installations of our code, it talks to what National Grid should be doing, and National Grid issued deficiencies. We haven't seen the plan to correct those. One would have thought that would have been part of what was submitted 6 months later, October to March or April, so that we would see that as an abutter. The other question I ask is, are you permitted to waive a demonstration of ownership? It would appear that the notarization of one of the trustees of the owners of the land is sufficient, that may be fine. But the code says a little bit more stringently that it means an owner or authorized agent. Perhaps that test has been done. Okay, now we get to where the water hits the road for us. According to DEM, when the applicant will file for a wetland permit, I wasn't clear whether you've already approached DEM. It is highly likely that a stormwater management plan will be required. What we don't know is what they will require as related construction. I don't question that Mr. Casale has knowledge here, but we are told that often portions of the site are broken down in a major way in order to create these detention ponds. Whether what is drawn is adequate for detention ponds, I have no way of knowing that. And yet I'm affected by how those ponds behave because I'm going to receive the overflow. So until we see a plan that meets DEM requirements, you can't meet the test of do no harm, and we as abutters can't be informed. So we now use 500-year storm data. It's going to change a lot in the new wetland stuff. Originally, in the information meetings, there was discussion of tanks for runoff mitigation. I hope that's not the case because nobody at DEM has ever heard of that. on page 7 of the plan, master plan, it says only minor modifications of the topography is proposed. That's great, as long as that's what DEM also approves. It also said storm water management techniques, including utilizing QPA infiltration, etc. We also have a code that talks about soil erosion and runoff. I presume that everything that was in the master plan addresses this satisfactorily. Okay, let's go to Article 7, the standards for granting. The zoning board may not grant a special use permit unless it finds the following. The use will be in harmony with the general intent of this chapter and the comprehensive plan. Route 101 is de facto a scenic road. It's definitely a rural corridor. When you travel it, and remember it's coming from the east, we come down a hill. The bottom line is, we don't want to see this.
Excuse me, please. I have to ask you how much more you have.
You have to ask me, pardon me.
How much more time? you
Not
think
much
you-
longer.
Please.
Regardless, it can be said when I refer to the findings in our own town of Foster documents, that your action on this application must consider the comprehensive plan, including section 5.6, the natural resources element. Foster's natural resources are crucial in defining the town's core character, etc., etc. I will skip my comments on the soil. One of your standards is it will not substantially or permanently injure the appropriate use of surrounding property. And it is this matter that we abutters are very unclear about. The development of Plat 18 cannot in any form move away from the fact that this is a wetlands parcel. My concern is that we need for you to consider important conditions as part of issuing a special use permit. This is the first special use permit to be granted to utility in AG as far as I know. I might be incorrect, but that was my understanding. This fact alone requires a more thorough vetting of the application and a comprehensive review. You set the bar. As the first, we need to avoid mistakes and carefully consider the impacts. In the code, it says the granting of the special use permit will not alter the general condition of the surrounding area or impair the intent or purpose in the comprehensive plan. It is large scale. You're being asked to grant a permit without the benefit of the true expertise. We don't have the further expertise of Mr. Casale's work. We don't have the expertise of wetlands. We don't have the expertise of the storm water management plan. And the town of Foster has no provision to require this and build that a third-party review. Therefore, it makes sense to lay this over until that data, which is going to be required anyway, comes back to us. I want you to consider, please, holding over this action. It's within your authority to do so. We believe that you're well served to review this matter again after the DEM does so. Lastly, it's too big. When and if the zoning board elects to move to a vote, there are 75 rows of arrays. If 7 rows, that's not a huge percentage of what's proposed, are eliminated on the south side, I believe, and I try to do this with overlays, I believe that the entire thing will be over the crest of the hill. We won't have to see it. We won't have to see even the transformer. In effect, it moves the points of visibility considerably and effectively.
Excuse me, we're not gonna redesign it for you. That's their job and they have to submit it. Now, this is well taken what you're saying, and
I'm
excuse
simply
me,
entering into the record that you have a right to request these things if
we
you
have a
wish.
lot of rights, and you quoted things that we are aware of
Yes.
about making an effect on Foster as a community,
Yes.
and
Right.
that's
I'm
something
trying
we
to
would
avoid
consider.
a delay in the future of an appeal, sir.
All right,
So that's the only reason why I'm
Are you speaking for yourself or are you speaking for a group?
I'm speaking for myself as a matron.
Okay, all right,
I
thank you.
can't speak for.
But to your
anybody.
point, ma'am, a
Yes.
lot of the stipulations that you're talking about are in the planning package. There are a lot of recommendations that are gonna be set forth in the application, they have to be met. And as Mr. Casali said, and what I'm accustomed to, and I think the board is,
Mhm.
and the chairman, is that the DEM plan has to be met. They do have to go forward and have an approved water retention pond plan. So to say that they're not gonna do that, or they're gonna do something shady,
I'm
is not a fair.
I'm not, I have no reason to cast aspersions on who they are or that they're up to. Please, don't take it that way.
Okay.
I am saying that the zoning board can grant the special use permit with conditions.
We know.
We're well aware of that.
And we, the community, or I, as one community member, whose land is impacted, I don't agree with the expert testimony, and had I known it was going to be, I might have brought my own.
Okay.
But regardless of that, the two things that are very important to us is, we don't really want to see it, we move it back, that'd be great. And if the forestry land that exists was allowed to stay 7 rows back, nobody would see it, we would not care. And that completes my testimony, thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else that would like to speak in opposition?
I would like
Are you in a butter, ma'am?
to, I believe so, across the street at 14 Hartford Pike, not directly across, but I'm at that black.
Did you receive a notification?
No, I got one, but yeah.
I'm sorry?
I got one, but I didn't come, yeah.
No.
But you did receive something in the mail?
Yes,
Then you were in a butter, I would imagine.
She's a,
yeah, okay. My name is Monique Taylor, and I'm at 14 Hartford Pike. Yeah, please swear.
Swear.
You solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
I'll try to take it in again.
Monique Taylor. Okay, first, it is a large project, and I would like to request an environmental impact study be done, because it's a large project. Our home is low-lying on that land, and it's westbound, where they said the water will run. We have a waterway beneath the ground on our property, and our property does flood. Recently, we've had the state dig a ditch in the front because of the runoff. So one of my concerns is, even though that they say that they're going to be building these holding areas, that it's not going to be enough because the project is so large, okay? What's not visible on this map are 2 large ponds. One is to the right here, and one is right across the street over here. They're very, very large, okay? And I think it's just going to cause further problems for the wetlands and the surrounding property owners.
If I may, what you're saying is you're addressing your reservations because of water runoff
Correct,
and things that would be addressed by DEM?
correct,
Okay,
okay?
just want to get it straight.
The whole area is, because of the ponds, is home to migrating birds. We have 2 eagles. I don't know if you know that. We have 2 eagles, okay? We have pileated woodpeckers, snapping turtles, and so on. This solar array is just going to disperse wildlife, and it is not habitat friendly, okay? Migrating birds will be in danger. It's not habitat friendly. The other thing is I'm concerned about, you can't miss this spot on the map. There's a house here, right in the middle of all of this. Someone lives there. You have to consider that. They have a well. There's not enough study that's being done on these solar arrays. There's not enough to say that their health won't be in danger or their pets won't be in danger. We all have farms in the area. This is huge. This isn't small. This isn't 5 acres. I know you approved 4 other places, but this is not small. This is big, and it's on the entrance to Foster. You gotta think about that, okay? It's right when you drive into Foster.
We try to take that under consideration. What we're trying to address here is any particular objections that you have, and you stated runoff, water,
And the home devaluation, okay?
and all of that. Okay.
He can say what he wants about another state. This is Rhode Island. I don't know about you, but I wouldn't buy that home for what it's worth. There's no way. It's right in the middle of the city already. All right, well, I'm gonna conclude this because I don't think that, never mind. All right, we're in the beginning of a solar rush. I'm sure you're aware of that because you've had a lot of applicants, okay? And I'm just asking that you be cautious, okay? And you set the rules because they're gonna hit us, they're gonna hit us hard. They're gonna buy up land like this at a lower cost, okay? And they're gonna put in big solar arrays without any concern to the residents or to the animals or anything that's here. This is money for them. These are our homes. This is our lives, okay? We have farms. We are concerned. Too many in Foster, too many requests, and there's more to come, I guarantee you. Thank you for hearing me.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in opposition? Are you in a butter?
I am on a mother. I'm Kathleen Brackett. That little piece of, right there,
Oh, good.
that's me.
Can you swear you in?
You can speak me in. I'm Kathleen Brackett,
Wait a minute.
at 7.
Do you solemnly swear the testimony about the case should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
So help you God. Yes.
State your name.
My name is Kathleen Brackett. I live at 7 Hartford Pike. I also own 10 Hartford Pike. So I guess this really does impact me a lot. As you see, I own this property here. I also own this property here. So technically, they're gonna just embrace me with all these solar panels. They're gonna put 9-foot fences all around my property. My grandfather and grandfather before that lived here. My maiden name is Hopkins. I've lived here all my life from the day I was born. I guess I'm very upset to the thought of becoming commercial. I drive to the city every day. I drive all day. I just went to Taunton. I went by the drug track. Used to be a drug track years ago. It was a flea market. Well, that's a big solar panel right now. All trees growing up, all the grass. My God, is ugly. It is a sin to go by. But I know they're gonna keep it up. These guys are gonna keep it up. They're gonna mow the grass every 3 weeks. They're gonna do everything just fine. But the evaluation of that property that I own, you guys are all Foster people. My mother and father lived there. I was born and brought up in that house. Can I sell that house for what it's really worth once there's a 9-foot fence around that piece of property? Would you want to buy it from me? For what it's worth now versus 9-foot fence? I don't think you do. I know they did evaluations down in North Carolina, South Carolina, New Jersey, wherever you may go, but it's not Foster. Foster is a rural place, always has been. I would like to keep it that way. And we already have 4 of these panels and solar systems here. Why add more? Why do another 45 acres of clear-cut woods and animals? And I have that piece of property go by sometimes at night, you'll see 4 or 5 deer out in the yard eating. That's what we have. Not no more once they get in here because they fenced it off. Where are these deers going to go? Where's all this live wildlife? 45 acres, that's a lot of land. So 1, I have an issue about the evaluation. 2, drainage. Oh, look, they pushed it back from 120 to 200, which thank you very much, I do appreciate that. But I'm not positive once you clear 45 acres of trees, when it has a rainstorm, that this drainage, when I don't even have anything saying DM. I agree, they have engineers and civil people, but when my cellar floods, when my yard is filled with water and ruins my house, who's going to be responsible for that? Me, not them. Okay? So I am quite concerned about that piece of property. Again, like I said, I live across the street, so everything that I own is going to be fenced in. I didn't live in Foster my whole life to be fenced in. Okay? And these big solar people coming in and taking over Forsyth. Oh yeah, we need tax money, we do, but not this way, not to take over our little town out here. And I guess I'm pleading with you guys to say, please don't take the country out of Forsyth. Don't let these companies come in and take from us. I don't want my father's house to be boxed in. I don't want my property that I told my whole life in. This was my grandfather's property, that was my father's property. And now you guys want to come in and just destroy it all. By clear cutting, 45 acres, thank you very much. If that was in your backyard, how would you like it? I guess you guys need the answer to this. And I guess that's all. But I am not in favor of the solar. I'm sorry, but that's how I feel, so please know that.
Thank you.
Mr. Brackett, yes,
So you don't live in the house, but you own it?
I own this house,
But you don't live there?
I do not live there.
Okay. So, just to, I appreciate, your statement has a lot of impact, at least for me, because you are there,
I am there.
right next to it. Did you attend the abutters meeting? With
I did, yes. Yeah, I did, I met pretty much all of them, I think.
Yes.
Okay, he's listened to me, he was very good at that. He's a perfect gentleman, and he's been very sweet. And it's not him or his company.
That's okay, they don't take it personal.
Right, it's a business.
Well, not only
And I
that,
understand
but they're now buying a piece of property that was for sale.
Correct.
Legally for sale, and they
Right.
legally bought it.
Correct.
And so my thing to you is
But they haven't bought it yet.
when you met them and they agreed to move the fence back and change the retention pond, and they do have some hurdles to overcome before they begin, DEM and
Correct.
the planning board again, you felt at that time you were comfortable with them, the concession of moving everything back? Or is this a new fear?
No, this is always been.
Okay, just trying to get it straight in my mind.
I brought it up to the point because they were 120. And then the next meeting, they pushed it back to 200, which, like I said, I appreciate that. But that still ain't making the fear go away, that drainage. Okay, and I haven't heard from DEM. I mean, I think DEM looks at the wildlife, they look at the water,
They do.
they look at a lot of things. And like one of my neighbors stated, over behind here, I have another big pond right behind my house. I butt to it, and my land butts by it. I have beavers out there working. You
Me
know what I'm
too.
trying to say? So it is like, and just like behind my house is all wetland. So they're gonna put the drainage, yeah, but it's still wetland. They're gonna, it's
And it always has been, correct?
correct, it always
So-
has been.
So now, the challenge that I think, I don't know if I should do this at a listening time, but the challenge we have here
Mhm.
is we want people to feel like they can come and purchase property that's available legally and become good neighbors. And if it's a legal venture, and if they go through the process like Mr. Casali has outlined, and to your point, and I agree, a good job of making accommodations, doing the actual physical work to present the case and educate you guys,
Yeah.
which I appreciated too, because I'm a Foster resident, obviously.
Yep.
I just don't know what you think, if everything's presented legally and the permits are obtained with DEM in the town, what would you have us do? Just say the land is not for sale anymore?
No, because
So-
it's not fair to do that. A lot is not the best land in the world. There's
It's
water
right.
and there's
You're right.
rocks.
I was
and
there.
I understand.
I was there.
I live there, so I know. I have
And
the
neither
same
do I.
land. I dig up those same rocks. So I do understand. But I also understand, okay, that, like I said, what they're trying to do is you're bringing the city to us. I guess is what I'm saying. You have for solar already in the town, Route 6. That's beautiful over there, I have to say. It's silver, you can see it all. I'm sorry, I have to sit there every day and stare at this out my front window.
Well, do you believe that
These people.
the presentation as made,
Mhm.
do you feel that it's fair to say that the 200-foot buffer, 160-foot minimum, with the undergrowth installed, so in wintertime,
Honestly,
you
I
can't
don't-
see it?
I don't know, I don't know. I mean, 100 feet isn't that much.
Well, I think it's no
I'm not
less,
talking.
from
not
your
talking-
property line, I think it's 200 feet.
Okay, right here, yes, they
Yes,
said it was
sorry.
200.
No, I just, something
Yes.
I'd like to Are you aware, the property is for sale, obviously,
Yes,
Jennifer
yes.
bought it.
Yes, they have not.
You brought up a
if I'm
couple of points.
understanding correctly.
One point you brought up is the Foster, small town, rural, lived there for a long time. That's well taken.
Right.
But the law, I have to tell you,
Mhm.
and that's what we have to go by,
I
is
see.
pretty ambiguous about it. No, we've run into this.
I see.
What constitutes rural Foster? You can't put a title on it. Now, I'll leave you with that, but let me say this. If someone were to come over and buy that land, right, and go into logging, and clear cut that land to within 50 feet of your house, do you know he's within the law to do it? If
But
it's
the
your
trees will
land,
grow
you
back.
can log
The
as
trees will
much as
grow
you
back.
want.
Correct. But let me put it to you this way, I don't want to
I'm not
hide
arguing
you.
the point with it, I just want you to be
Right,
aware of it.
I understand what you're saying.
Okay.
And the point's been brought up that they could sell the property and put 10 houses on that. And they could do this, and they could do
Yes.
that. You're 100% right, but they're not putting a 9-foot fence up all around me. Do you know what jail feels like? How big is their fences? I feel like, you're putting these people in jail.
So you
Well,
feel
my-
that you can see, that you'll still be able to see the fence?
Well, let me put it this way, 200 feet, I don't know. I
Could
don't
you see
know my-
200 feet in from the road now? I couldn't.
Can you equate to 200 feet?
No, I cannot.
Okay, a telephone pole, between telephone poles, approximately 25 feet.
Okay.
So that's 8 telephone poles?
It's 150 feet, 150 feet.
100 feet?
150.
150.
Between each telephone pole?
At least on
100 to 150.
On Tucker
I used to work for
It was
Gibson.
250. No, I'll take your word for it, I stand corrected.
Okay.
100 to 150, so you're looking at 2 telephone depths. I'm just trying to make you be able to picture it.
Right. But what I'm still bringing up the point of, they're tall, they're confining, they're like you live in the city, the house is here and the house is here. You got a fence here, I got a fence here, I live in Forster, I don't longer live in Forster if this thing comes in here. I live in the city. And that's just what I'm saying, I'm in a butter, and I always thought our butters had a right to voice their opinion and have a sway.
Absolutely.
I don't mean it, but-
Absolutely. You do.
Okay?
And please be aware, we're not arguing
No,
with
you
you,
do
we just
have a
want
right.
to point
You
these
know,
things
I
out.
think let me put, I had a business, Ricky's Bar and Bargains, I don't know if anybody's old enough to remember that.
Yeah.
Okay, but that was me. The town gave me a terrible, took my license, I went to court. Okay, because one neighbor had their panties in a ruffle. My point is, on this one, okay, and we didn't do anything except hay, grain, and lumber. Okay? They didn't want a business in town. We were ruled. So I know how that feels. Okay? I went to court, I went to Supreme Court or whatever court we went to, I can't remember, it was years ago. Me and my husband. And let me put it this way. And now, everything I fought, they fought, okay, put me out of business. Now, I'm sitting here saying I'm in the gutter, and I'm saying I don't want this. I don't want my property to the point of 9-foot fences all around me. No more wildlife, no more animals. Okay, I have a farm over here, I have cows, I have horses, I have chickens, I have a turkey. It ain't gonna matter anymore because I got 9-foot and probably gonna go around me again. I don't know, because the town keeps allowing this because we need money for taxes. And I just don't feel, and who says that drainage is gonna stop? Who's gonna stop it? My cellar floods out and my house is ruined.
Mrs. Brackett, your opinion matters, and what you're saying, I understand. But the problem we have is a legal sale in a venture like this that's legal.
Mhm.
It's not just that the town needs taxes, but we also need to give townspeople like you and me an opportunity to use their land to generate revenue if it's legal.
If
And
it's
if
legal,
this
right.
is legal and they're doing everything by the law, and they have all the licenses and permits,
Mhm.
it's difficult to tell them that they can't do it.
Okay.
We're
What's the
not in
answer
a
about
position to
this?
be able, they will have to pass all the DEM hurdles, and it's not easy.
So they go to a planning board, they go to the zoning
They
board.
have.
they go to the town hall,
Yep.
they get everything, and then you go to DEM?
No, they're
No,
gonna
no,
go
that
to
comes
DEM
first.
next.
Okay.
Zoning comes last. And
So
zoning has to balance all
They
this.
have to go back to the planning board after this
After
for a
this.
preliminary and a final. So there can be two more, either they're gonna be combined or separate, there can be two more planning board hearings for additional, conditions and stuff like that.
Okay.
So they've
I
got to
just
go
want,
forward.
please research everything, get really, so you're not gonna destroy the country.
I appreciate that very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Brackett.
Thank you. Yep.
Are there any other abutters? Any other abutters in opposition?
I have a question to
Okay.
ask, please. You don't need to sign it. Oh, I know I didn't sign.
You can state your name.
My name is Donna Conklin. I'm on 50 Tucker Hollow Road. Raise your hand. Do solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. I do. Say your last name again. Fontaine. Fontaine.
I have a comment to make that I think it's been thrown around a little bit tonight that this parcel is sold. Can you advise me, has it been sold?
It's under control, site control.
It's what? So,
It's site control.
so does that mean that the purchase would be dependent upon this?
It's dependent upon my client's position as to whether or not he wants to buy it under any circumstances. So right now, he has control.
Okay. So it appears, and it's just an opinion, that possibly this parcel may not be sold to Mr. Davari if this does not get approved. So that goes back to the statement of a couple of the abutters that this is really not a neighbor purchasing a home or a parcel. This is a business trying to generate money. So to say that they would have a input in the town because they want to be here, that is not necessarily what the abutters have. There's a huge difference.
So you mean your concern is that they don't have any skin in the game as Foster residents?
The skin in the game would probably be because this is a parcel that's not really
Exactly.
buildable. It's a non-desired part of land that probably would never have housing on it. But it's desirable because it can house solar.
Here's the problem. The problem is legally, they have a right to purchase the land. Legally, they have the right to apply for a special use permit. We can't lock people out because A, they're not Foster residents, or B, they're business owners, or they're entities or LLCs. We don't make the law, we just interpret it
No, you
here.
didn't say that. I guess my statement today would be I just wanted you to understand this is not a sold property. This is not possibly even going to be sold to this particular purchaser unless this gets approved through DEM.
We get that, and the problem is, this wouldn't have come to us through the planning board in the town if it didn't meet every criteria. And here, we only interpret the town ordinances and vote on it, that's it. We don't make the laws, we just interpret what's in front of us.
Okay, so when you review, you have to review the comprehensive town plan and make sure that everything is.
We take into account everything, the planning board, the ordinances, you guys, their testimony, we talk, we
And I
have
think
legal
part of that, I
counsel.
don't know the exact verbiage, but part of that plan is to not eradicate the general appearance of
True.
the topography and whatnot.
True.
So there's 25 acres out of the 42 parcel land, that's quite drastic. And as far as the, just one more comment, as far as the real estate comment, first of all, North Carolina and Rhode Island is like comparing, apples to oranges, it's just kind of bizarre. And to say that this poor woman's property is not going to be devalued in pricing in the market, I think that's kind of unrealistic. I think any one of us here today, honestly, and Mrs. Brackett, I don't think any offense to this, but I don't think anybody would be, pining to purchase that property. And it is a lovely little home and, it's a nice area, but after this, honestly, I totally disagree with that real estate
I think after anybody meets Mrs. Brackett, they'd love to buy that property.
You wanna buy it?
I'm nice. I'm thinking about it.
Say,
If I may interject something, I think Foster has tried, and as you know, Foster implicated a 5-acre minimum to build a house on. And that was directed just at situations like this. You could come into Foster, buy 5 acres, put your house right in the middle, and you wave at your neighbors as you go by. You don't see them, you don't hear them or anything. Unfortunately, there is some land that is, what's the term? I'm sorry?
Before the zoning come in, that was developed before zoning and anything come in. My grandfather gave it to my mother and father, and they built that house on 3/4 of an acre. So that's how that.
So there's 3/4 of an acre.
It was before all the laws came in.
Yeah. Thank you for your input. Anyone else? That, any other abutters? Okay, now we'll go into, anyone on the public in favor?
Excuse me one second.
So, all set?
Mr. Chairman, if you'd like, and I know that people are talking about the processes in DEM, I can have Joe come back and explain how much work, more work we have to do before we can even appear before the planning board. That could be a couple of months, and if you'd like, I'll have Joe explain that. I know that you guys know. I don't know if the general public understands that this is only basically step number 2, and then we have a long way to go, and a lot of permitting to do, and a lot of road to hoe, as they say down south, before we get this. If you'd like us to go through it, we'll be glad to do it.
I think that's necessary at this time. We're aware of it, the board is who you're addressing, and we're aware that you've got a lot of work to do.
We appreciate that,
Yeah,
you
we
taking note of the fact that there's obviously some concerns about the DEM approvals in the runoff.
That seems to be one of the major concerns.
Yeah, and it
Runoff
would
and,
be for me too.
Well, obviously, the jurisdiction is DEM's jurisdiction. Planning board has a lot, again, without boring everybody, is that we have to go to DEM, that's going to be quite a long time before we get the approval. And then we have to go and vet everything in front of the planning board. Planning board is not going to just stamp it for approval, that's another whole process. So there's a long way to go for the protection of everybody, especially when it comes to water. We are aware of it, DM's aware of it, the planning board's aware of it, but we need this to go on.
Understood.
this is just the first step. Okay, but we do have to entertain, is there anyone in the public who would like to speak in favor? Anyone in the public that would like to speak in favor of this application? Anyone in the public would like to speak in favor? Anyone in the public that would like to speak against this application? Mrs. Ryder?
This is, I have some concerns, I won't say this is exactly. Excuse
I'm gonna
me?
hold you to
She has a
swear.
house call in Ferris.
You solemnly swear the testimony you want to give should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes.
Your name?
Lynn Ryder, R-I-D-E-R. Okay?
I'm gonna hold you to,
Right, no, this is just a couple of concerns that I heard brought up. Number one, I heard that there would absolutely be no blasting or crushing. I didn't hear anything about hydraulic hammers. That's one concern. Another concern is that obviously if they're gonna be planting grass over, this takes how many acres, the actual array?
21?
Yeah, I believe you're gonna be trucking in loam, a lot of loam, because you're not gonna use what's up there. Not possible, not if you want actual grass. My other concern is, I don't see, is there a little road shown here? Is this the little road?
Yes, that's the dog leg.
Okay, what is that going to be made out of? Is that dirt? Is it hardtop,
Right now, we assume crushed stone.
crushed stone?
12-foot wide crushed stone.
Okay, and the grade going up, because it is quite a, I mean, just wondering if that grade has been passed by the emergency vehicles and anyone who might have to access that
I believe
for
it's part of the
emergency.
master plan through the TRC, police and fire have looked at this, yes.
Okay, and my last concern is, I know this hasn't gone before DEM, obviously, before, but when it does, I'm assuming that the builders have been very accommodating and very, very accommodating to the abutters by making such a large buffer. Should DEM come back and say, I'm sorry, those retention ponds are just not gonna do it, and you have to reconfigure something, who loses? Does the buffer go away, or is it less solar field? Those are my concerns.
Mr. Chairman, if I can, just because we have a pattern of the sizes of those detention basins, if I may, but those ponds are not just lines on papers. Those have been sized and hydrologically modeled. I'm very confident that the sizes that you see will be the sizes that will be constructed.
Okay, but have you dealt with the Providence Water Supply Board? Because this feeds into the reservoir system.
I haven't. So if DEM, this will not be in environmental permitting, an application to alter is the highest level of permit that you can receive from DEM. Respectfully, I know this is a big project, but it's not. It's only 20 acres. We work on 100-acre sites routinely. When we get the permit from DEM, we're going to receive a very low-level permit from the preliminary determination called an insignificant alteration, because that is what DEM will determine this will be. And I say that affirmatively because I filed hundreds of these applications. I'm registered in multiple states. I've been doing this for 25 years. We will get an insignificant alteration permit because the alteration will be insignificant to the wetlands. There will be 5 different groups of professional engineers that will look at this drainage.
All right, we'll get into it in more detail, but I think you've answered the question. Thank you for your question. Yes.
A little bit more, if it were to change dramatically, they would need to come back to planning to have their plan modified.
Right, but
If that,
But
and
they're
then they
being
would have to, okay.
right, super generous with that buffer. That is something that could lessen if the
That would
need
be
be, and
amazing.
they'd still be within the town.
Right, Lynn, that's true. If I choose to go above and beyond the
Right.
minimum,
Right,
I should have the ability to drop it back 5 feet and still be considered generous.
right.
I get your point. The point remains that they're not going to be able to do anything until they come back with the DEM approvals and visit the planning board again.
Right,
We'll
and,
find out then.
you know, and understand, people are a little
I understand.
skeptical about the DEM.
Did we do it 3 times?
Yes.
No.
All right. That's in favor, right? No. Anyone in the public who would like to speak in opposition to this application? Anyone in the public who would like to speak in opposition to this application? That's 3.
Yep.
Last chance for the applicant to speak. I think you pretty much covered it, but if you've got anything else.
We're all set, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions from the board before we go into focus? No? Okay, then, yeah. Separate exchanges.
So the application with the attachments will be marked as Exhibit 1. The staff report will be marked as Exhibit 2. Mr. Sweeney's report, I believe, will be marked as Exhibit 3. And I believe that there is a public objection. This one, you want to read this?
We do. We have a public objection from the Defender of Animals Incorporated, P.O. Box 5634, Waybosset Hill Station, Providence, Rhode Island. They sent a letter addressed to the Zoning Board of Review on May 14th, 2018. Dear Zoning Board of Review members, on behalf of our members in Forster and throughout Rhode Island, I wish to make known our concern for the proposed issue of a construction of solar panels in the Hartford Pike Route 101 area in Forster. We assume that it's this one. On behalf of our, not only is this proposed site slated for a residential area, but also will threaten many animals and birds in the area. The town of Forster should make sure that an environmental impact study be done before the Zoning Board of Review considers this request. If there is no environmental impact study done, the town of Forster may find itself in a situation of putting protected species in danger. We believe that an environmental impact study will demonstrate that the proposed development will have a negative impact on the natural features and ecological functions. Make a motion to enter this into exhibit as
Public
evidence.
Exhibit 1.
Public exhibit 1. Second?
Anyone second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. All right, if we don't have any other questions, we will entertain a motion to close public hearing at this time.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion we close the public hearing this time.
Anyone second that motion? All in
Who
favor?
seconded it? Who seconded it?
Opposed?
Wait
Wait a minute. Did you?
I need to know who said that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
We all set? Seconded? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. We are in, we've closed the public hearing, and we are in recess, and we have discussion.
So we're in recess or we're discussing?
We're in focus.
Amongst ourselves, right, yes.
The planning board already decided that this is not going to alter the comprehensive plan anyway, right? They
All
decided
right,
that.
I need to hear your question again.
I asked the question if the planning board has already decided that this is not an infringement on the comprehensive plan, as stated in the, comprehensive plan. So they've reviewed it and they decided that it meets the requirements.
The planning board
The
has,
planning board
which we take under advisement.
has. Right.
Anything else you want to discuss?
Well, yeah, I
It's not going to be easy.
just have a quick question. On how did we verify that this was even an entity that's in a legitimate existence?
Well,
You can treat it with, whatever
Suspect.
credibility you like, yes.
I have a couple of issues.
Sure.
I'm having a problem with the retention pond. And one of the speakers made a very good point. If these ponds have to be enlarged, I think one of the stipulations we should install is that they be enlarged in the panel district of the property. The buffers, as far as I'm concerned, the buffers have to remain the way they are. Even the abutter that said move back 7 rows of panels, I agree with that, but I think it's asking a lot. But if the ponds have to be enlarged according to DEM, it should be on the functioning part of the property, not the buffer. Also, I think we should stipulate,
Excuse me, maintain the buffer.
maintain the buffer,
Okay,
correct.
all right.
So build in rather than.
Yeah.
That there be no rock processing at all on the property. If there's a problem with the rocks, they have to be removed. wholly.
The hydraulic cable was mentioned.
So there'll be no blasting, crushing, jackhammering, nothing. As far as the stone walls are concerned, I am not sure if that has to go before the Historical Society or
I can't answer that either.
It's a good question.
I don't believe that they have jurisdiction over the stone walls.
It's a good question. I'm Tom.
up to?
I know that there's,
Ask him if he can speak.
Rhode Island does have some ordinances for that.
If I may.
Yeah, you don't have those questions.
My understanding, the stone wall limits, there's ones in Smithfield that we deal with, and just went before the historic committee for Situate Police Station. I believe, my understanding is that the stone wall, in order for it to be historic, has to be pre-1900. And that's difficult to prove because the earliest areas I can see are from 1920.
Is that a town requirement or a state federal requirement?
Most towns, when they adopt the stone wall ordinance, wrap in that state requirements. There was an issue where on 102, we were going to remove a stone wall that was in the DOT right-of-way for the new police station in Situate. We had to ask if they were of historic significance, and we were able to go back to the 20s, and that's where the data stops, and so it was determined that it was not of historical significance. So it's very difficult to prove.
That stop enforcement also, or just that time just making mention of it?
That's just recent experience. I don't believe this town yet has a stone wall ordinance. I know other communities are starting to adopt them, Smithfield and such. That's where the relevant experience comes from.
We don't believe we do we? Do we know?
I'm pretty sure.
I'm sorry, we're not open to
Okay.
the public.
Just done.
It's just like, it's just that, we asked the planner if she was aware of any ordinance enforced, but your point is taken.
There is something. It's something we'll have to look into.
Yes.
yeah, that's two of my concerns with the size of retention ponds. Like I said, if they have to be enlarged, I think we should put in a stipulation that they have to go onto the production part of the property. The process remains the same, and there's no rock processing on the property.
I don't think there's been enough input. There are too many questions out there for us to pass
I
or
know.
call for them.
You have the right to hold over to the next meeting. I can't hear you.
I agree with you.
Oh, you have the right to hold over to the next meeting if you want to defer a vote, and if there's some additional information that you
We
want
need
the
more
applicant to
input.
provide, or you want.
What would we
some-
like? Let's give them something. First of all, we'll entertain a motion that we hold over some of our requests or our
Let's figure out what we
questions.
want first, so
Yeah.
that we can make that
And
motion.
I'll do that first. Okay. First of all, what do we want?
Well, I think the thing we need an answer on is the stone walls.
Stone wall be first.
All right, some
Because the rock crusher and such is already pretty much, that's already spelled out.
But I specifically said rock processing.
Yeah.
Hydraulic camera and such stuff of that nature, correct?
Okay, that's gonna be straightened out, but what I'm worried about is reports from DEM and runoff data and things of that nature.
DEM, what's DEM?
I think we've gotta get some
Yeah, but
information.
John, can they go to the DEM before getting a special use permit?
No.
So they have to get the special use permit to go to the DEM.
That's why I think we should, I think the prudent thing and the great question that Tom asked was about the carrying of the stone walls. If we can get that settled in our minds and hearts, if that's the right way to go, then I think we can proceed and allow the process to continue.
With some of those other stipulations that Tom had?
Oh, absolutely. We already have those are in your package, those stipulations, and we can add to them.
The ones, yeah, the ones.
Yeah.
I took them
absolutely.
down, so
Yeah,
we'll have
we're
them back.
gonna be
Good
okay.
job.
Anything else we want to input on?
That was it. That was honest, right?
So have we got enough to hold off a vote and continue it?
Yeah.
My question is to continue to find out what,
The stone walls.
the stone.
Yeah.
Yeah, because then we can proceed with the DEM's portion of it. Mr. Casali, do you understand the question? We need verification of the care of the stone walls.
I believe the applicant would obviously stipulate to not only a DEM and a DOT approval, but affirmation from the state of preservation that these stone walls are not historic. That's the correspondence that we could actually file an application with them and ask them to be
Get some-
charged.
Okay, so
Get some verified.
We're looking for the vote subject to, as a stipulation.
Okay, so, well, all right, well, let's keep talking just one more second. So then maybe what we're looking for is affirmation that not only the stone walls are or not historic, but how you intend on properly caring for it, because of the information you receive. Does that make sense?
That's fair.
With a stipulation of the stone, that there's a report on the proper caring of the stone walls?
But the report's not gonna come to you though.
No, planning board.
It's gonna go to the planning board.
I know the ordinances, we just have to see if there is any ordinances.
Right.
Is that fair?
We can have a vote, so that we know.
It's your decision. If everybody feels comfortable voting with that stipulation, that's fine. If some people do not feel comfortable, then you can revoke, whether you're gonna hold.
We're still in discussion.
We don't know if there's any, we don't know if there's any ordinances, John.
I'm sorry?
We don't know if there's any.
I can't hear you.
I'm sorry.
We're trying to whisper here. We're trying to whisper.
Yeah, well,
Okay, let's speak up. Now, my question was, let's discuss whether we want to go to a vote with stipulations or do it some other way. Do we have any input on this? Do you feel as though you've got enough to vote on
I
with the
think we should go
stipulation on
vote.
stone walls?
I think we should go with the stipulation.
Okay?
I mean, people are worried about all these wetlands and everything, but the DM is gonna approve on this thing. It isn't like if we vote for the special use permit, it's automatically granted.
Right, right. So that'll take care of
Who
itself.
makes the determination on the stone walls?
Historical Society.
Historical
And any ordinance we have, if there is
If there is,
one. Our planner thinks there is no official ordinance on record.
I thought I seen one.
Well, we'll find out really
Yeah, I
fast.
heard rumors, I
Find out.
haven't seen it.
Trying to check.
We're overriding, we're not speaking difference.
yeah, I guess so. I can't hear you down that end, really anything you're saying.
He just said that he thinks it'll come out with the historical society. That'll be taken care of, the decision.
They'll be determined.
It will be determined. That's not true. All right, then I guess the chair will entertain a motion to put this to a vote.
We're gonna turn on.
Is that okay?
Yes.
I make a motion to put it to a vote.
Okay, put it in a motion. Someone put it in a motion.
Wait, you just put in a motion to entertain a vote.
You did?
Yeah.
Okay, anyone second?
We need to come on focus.
Second.
Second.
We will, if this goes through. Second, all in favor of putting this to a vote?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No. Okay, we'll put it to a vote, and we'll come out of caucus at this time. Does that satisfy you?
Yes.
Okay.
But yes, we're gonna have to, if you want to take a brief recess, so that I can write out these new special conditions,
Yes.
and add them into the vote.
Okay, so what do you want, 10 minutes, 5 minutes?
Yes, 10 minutes, please.
Come on, 2 minutes.
Should slow right up. There'll be a recess of 10 minutes, and no more.
Yeah.
So you need to go back, if it's something else. Coming back in front of me.
No, I get that, but I was, the first thing I did.
Yeah, I'll look at it. They have to be but it's gonna delay twice, once.
Somebody moved to not approve it, and then
What do you think you so they can
Well, I understand that. Everyone knows it's important. So the guy who already said, I'm gonna split up my
It's a continuation of that. It was already listed.
Just call my guy.
I know, but it's just,
Run out of tape yet? No, this one, I got over 1,000 minutes left. They're fogging up on one one side. Oh no, what is that? Is that tape? Was you have an offering? It was? Did they work on it? They operate? Just like that.
I know, it's amazing. There's no one ever did, because they tell me, sure they can't even walk.
Yeah, it just started, it's not on the screen before you know it, the whole thing, I can't see Disregard that mallet.
Did you speed him up a little bit?
That was just a trial run?
Next one's gonna be perfect.
You guys didn't say anything because it's on.
Does the town council meet here too?
Tomorrow night.
They put it in this building?
It depends, either this one or the one up across the street. I think we're gonna stop moving over there because it's historically the only one in the United States that's still being used the longest in history. Townhouse. So every summer, we still hold meetings there to keep that designation.
That's pretty cool. So you think you'll be there for the 28th week? I'd love to see it.
Denise, we're gonna meet over there at 28? Or is that? It's a beautiful house.
No, I'm just geeking out, want to see the building.
I told him about the longest history of town meetings. Oh, you guys, let's see you.
Sweat. You want some retail? Is that how we said we're fine?
Oh, well, you know, I got
All right, sorry. This machine broke down.
I gotta work on a screen.
Just make note of
Make it great for the part of the
Okay, we don't want to make that note, John.
comments.
reasons.
I was just saying, it gets warm again. I don't know how you guys meet here in August.
Joe's, he's sweating like crazy. That's because you guys have to look at stuff. You might have to look like that when I come to Sunday.
With, you know, this, we can get a lot of tax dollars if we get some air conditioning.
Absolutely.
But that costs money, though.
Gordon, I sweat so bad when I got married. When I got married.
You don't have to do this.
Right. I did all the site work, I did the farmer's house, and I do all the. It's the father's house, I installed it. That was probably an operation.
So for me, June, July, August.
This one's official. The back is official. Okay. We will entertain a motion. We will entertain a motion to put this to a
There's
vote.
another worksheet. Did everybody do the worksheets?
Yes.
Oh, here you go.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we take a vote on the special use permit
With added,
with added provisions.
We took that, we already took that vote. So you can make the motion now. Yeah?
I make a motion, Mr. Chairman, to approve the application. Should we explain that everything's in the affirmative?
okay, I do the.
I make a motion, Mr. Chairman, to approve the application under the authority granted to the Zoning Board of Review by Rhode Island General Law 452457 and by the Town of Foster zoning ordinance Article 11, Section 3C, specifically the following special use permit is granted. Construction of a 6.02 megawatt DC ground-mounted solar installation encompassing approximately 20.5 acres with related gravel access drive, 9-foot-high security fence, and stormwater best management practices on Hartford Pike between poles 3-12 being Plat 18, Lot 30, in an agricultural residential district on 45.3 acres per the Town of Foster zoning ordinance Article 4 zone regulations, description of use, Section 10, service industry, subsection 6, major solar installation. Evidence of the following standards pursuant to the Rhode Island General Law 452442 and the Town of Foster zoning ordinance Article 7, Section 2B has been entered into the record of proceedings. The special use is specifically authorized by this ordinance. The special use meets all of the criteria set forth in the sections of this ordinance authorizing such special use, and the granting of special use permit will not alter the general characteristic of the surrounding area or impair the intent or purpose of this ordinance or the comprehensive plan of the town. Further, it is proposed that the following special conditions, based on the competent, credible evidence on record and allowed under Rhode Island General Law 452443 and the Foster zoning ordinance Article 7, Section 3, be applied to the decision in order to promote the intent and purpose of the comprehensive community plan of the town and the zoning ordinance. The approval is subject to the following conditions. Supplemental approval is based on plans entitled Purpose Solar Array, Hartford Pike, Rhode Island, AP 18, Lot 30, Sheet 2 of 2, dated March 2018. Condition 2, any power purchase agreement, contract, or permit shall be provided before the final plan approval is given. Condition 3, fencing, landscaping, emergency access, grading, drainage, installation component details, UL listing or equivalent of all relevant installation components shall be finalized and provided as part of the next land development review submission. Condition 4, the installation shall be in compliance with the Rhode Island State Building Code and the Rhode Island State Electrical Code and shall be subject to the periodic inspections by the Forster building official. Condition 5, a Rhode Island DEM preliminary determination application shall be provided as part of the next land development review submission. Condition 6, the Rhode Island DOT PAP shall be provided as part of the next land development review submission. Condition 7, proof of liability insurance shall be provided as proof of liability insurance and decommissioning shall be provided as part of the next land development review submission. Condition 8, a surety bond should cover, bond to cover and the decommission costs shall be posted prior to the issuance of any building permits. Condition 9, a performance bond up to $100,000 is to be provided for landscaping from a landscape architecture plan approved by the planning board. I have also condition 10, there shall be no rock crushing, no blasting or proceeding of rock, stone processing on the property. If the applicant, through the use of if the applicant is to use a hydraulic hammer or jackhammer, it finds it necessary, the applicant shall first notify the Forster building official, who shall provide parameters with respect to time, days, that such activities may occur. Condition 11, the applicant shall provide a determination from the Rhode Island Historic Preservation Society regarding the historic nature of any stone walls on the property, and the applicant shall treat the stone walls in accordance with that decision and any applicable state or local laws and ordinances. Condition 12, the applicant shall provide training for the first responders. And condition 13, there shall be a knock box on the property for the local fire department and emergency personnel, a master key for emergencies. Yes, you may. Those are the conditions as read.
Oh, wait, what, yeah, there's gonna be one more, I'm sorry.
I apologize, those are not the conditions. Oh, we've got another 2 hours before we have to go.
Yeah.
John doesn't turn into a pumpkin for 2 more hours.
At least,
We got time.
yeah, we'll make time. You understand, we're drafting the motion, and these are amendments to the drafted motion, which we will vote on soon.
Condition 14. If the DEM requires the retention ponds to be enlarged, the enlargement shall be extended into the area proposal for the panel placement and shall not encroach upon the buffers as proposed. Is that clear?
At all?
It is, unless you want to add something else. Coffee?
You've all heard the motion. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
All right, now we'll vote. Poll for the vote, please.
Brian Capola, how do you vote?
I vote to accept.
Robert DeLuca, how do you vote?
Accept.
Tom Naramo?
I vote to accept, if I may make a statement.
Yes.
I understand and agree with some of the concerns of the abutters. And your concerns are real. And it's hard to put from sitting here that if you had to have a neighbor, this one doesn't make any noise. And it's things that, like we stated before, the property is for sale, they're falling within their rights, and I have to tell you, it's a very difficult vote for me, because I believe in what you voiced. This is why I'm in this town. But we have to follow the guidelines and the ordinances and the laws. I vote to approve.
Chairman Esposito, how do you vote?
I vote to approve, and it was very well put by Tom. I agree with him. We are very cognizant of the fact that you people do a butt, and you do have concerns, but I do vote to approve.
I, David Pierino, vote to approve, and for the same reasons, I'd like to say that this is one of the most thoughtful meetings that we've had. A lot of hard work went in. It was really impressive for such a small, I guess, venture. A lot of good testimony and a lot of good things were brought out, and I learned a little bit. And I think with the conditions set in place, I think it'll work out fine. I hope it will.
Right, motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.